Hello, Jessica Jorbrix here, back to another review. And today I'm reviewing set number 71004, and it's LEGO Minifigures, the LEGO Movie Series. And now this series is actually kind of a unique case because it's the first of its kind, I guess you could say, because it's a LEGO Minifigures series based off of another theme. We're going to see this happen again with LEGO Minifigures The Simpsons series, because that series, I guess you could say Simpsons is going to be another theme because we're getting at least one set for it besides the series. And it's kind of interesting to see, I guess you could say, LEGO minifigures based off of existing property. Now this hasn't happened, it's not like something that hasn't happened at all before, because I guess you could say it happened with the Team GB minifigures, which were exclusive to Great Britain in 2012 to promote the Olympics for summer 2012. And it's just kind of a weird thing to see because we didn't get Team GB minifigures. So it is kind of interesting, but these retail for $3 in the US, unlike Europe, because in Europe they actually got a price hike up, because usually LEGO minifigures are for $2 or €2, and now it's for €250. So that's kind of interesting to see a price hike there. But in the US, these are just regular prices that you get the minifigures in, because you usually pay $3 for a LEGO minifigure pack. There's 16 minifigures. I'll be taking a look at each one individually, like I usually do with these LEGO minifigure reviews. But you can see the packaging for the set is actually very nice. Shows all the minifigures on the front. Nowhere that has like the LEGO minifigure logo, which is kind of interesting, except on this kind of back part right here, which I'll show later. So you can see it just says the LEGO Movie. Again, no logo for the minifigures, but they do have the little 16 to collect thing. The box right here, I don't want to knock over any of the minifigures, has a very nice design right here, which you can see. It's kind of like the designs on the actual set boxes. And of course you open it up like that or whatever. But most people don't get the box. I just like collecting the boxes. And it shows all the minifigures right there. This side shows all the minifigures right there. And this side shows all the rest of the minifigures. And then for the back, which is the most interesting part, and of course this is recommended for ages 5 and up, it says LEGO minifigures right here. So yes, it is part of the LEGO minifigure line. I've seen a few people debate that this isn't part of the LEGO minifigure line, but it is because the logo is right there, and even the LEGO minifigures website has these minifigures. It's going to be interesting to see if they put down the Simpsons series, but I'm sure they will. And so yeah, that's it for the kind of display box, I guess you could say. But for the display, I guess you could say that most of you people will be getting are these little packets right here. And of course, you buy the packet and you open it up, and then there's a minifigure for $3. And you can see right there. And lastly, for the little checklist, you can see the minifigures they show right there. And on the back. And this is kind of like an ad right here, and I don't know if it's for a new app or if it's just kind of showing that app thing to show that you can scan the QR code. So I'm a little bit confused with that, but it's an ad for something with the LEGO Movie. And I'll be taking a look at each minifigure individually, and let's get straight to that right now. So here is the first minifigure, and it is the Calamity drone. And now this minifigure in particular, while it isn't one of my favorite minifigures at all, actually none of these drones in this series are my favorites, and they're some of my least favorite. I have to say this one is probably the best out of the drones, and there's 3 in the series. I do really love her hairpiece because I could actually use it in my LEGO city or whatever, and you can see it's very detailed right there. But the rest of her, like, I don't like her face at all, and I don't like any of these robots' faces. And this one in particular because it has a little blush on the sides, the little, if you see the pink printing on her face for like the cheeks, I guess you could say. That printing, really, I don't know why they put that on robots. Like seriously, they did that with the Series 11 one. It's like, it's unnecessary. Do robots really wear makeup or whatever? But I guess this fits the tone of the movie because the tone, or maybe in the movie, you know, they want to make them, or the people who direct the movie or the people who are making the movie, they want to make the robots look like they're, you know, they're obviously not robots, and that's a joke. So that, I guess it's fine as it's accurate to the movie, but this just doesn't make it one of my favorite minifigures. You can see she's a lot like Red Harrington, which is probably one of my favorite minifigures of this year. They do have different hair little molds right there, and obviously different hair colors, but they do use the same little hat mold on the top of their hair. But they're different colorings. I actually have to say Red Harrington's coloring is much better to me because I just like the colors on her more than just this kind of red one. Still, I really wish they would have included a different, maybe a new accessory or a new molded accessory with this minifigure. At least, I'm saying like not with the gun, but still we do get one new mold, so I guess that's fine. No back printing on her face or anything, but you do get some nice back printing on her torso. Again, it's kind of nice to see that these drones don't have like printing on their torsos that make them look like robots or whatever, so they're not specific to robot use. A lot of people are saying they're going to use them as zombies, but with all that printing on the face, I don't think you could use the faces as zombie prints. Of course, the hair and the hat are two different molds, and you kind of just take it off like a friend's hat, and you can see right there, there's a little hole. So it is a well-made minifigure, but not one of my favorites just by the looks alone. Definitely the best of the robots, though. Next up, and I am going in order, is President Business. Now, this isn't Lord Business, but this is just President Business. And this version is a little bit different from the other version, which I still haven't taken out, so I'm sorry I can't do like a comparison. But you can see his little torso right there is just a slightly different than the other version, because the other version, it's just a little bit more tucked in. I think the tie's like tucked in on the bottom. He has no leg printing or anything like that, but he does have different facial printing, which you can see right there, he's kind of calm. And on the back, he's really angry. So some people call this the really angry President Business. And his cup does have exclusive printing, which says Octon right there. So that's going to be nice for LEGO fans to use as their sig figs or whatever, with them holding a cup. And his hair mold is the same that's in the other set that he comes in, which is the layer set. But it is still a very nice mold. I don't know why. It's just kind of, it's not usable at all. Don't get me wrong. But it's just, it's very, very well molded because it's so detailed and very ridiculous. You can see it right there. And it's actually pretty nice to feel, because if you like feel the ridges right there, they're really kind of sharp and they're a little bit blocky. So that's really cool. Do you like the little hair mold right there? It is very, very nice. And you can see on the back right there. So is this minifigure any good? Well, I mean, if you're not getting the layer set, this is the cheapest way to get the main villain. And he is still a very, very nice minifigure. I mean, he's not bad at all. And his facial printing is still usable. I mean, maybe not the really angry one, but the back one right here, you could use in an everyday scenario. Just look over his unibrow or whatever. And his suit is very usable for like business people. So yeah, that's it for Very Angry Lord Business, or President Business, because this one's President and not Lord Business. Here's Hard Hat Emmet, and wow, this minifigure is just fantastic. Definitely my favorite of the series, along with Larry the Barista, which you guys will see later. Now this minifigure, you can see, it's based off of the main character, Emmet, who is just adorable. I think he's an excellent character. And you can see, even though his legs are the same as one that comes in the set, which you can see right there, and his torso is the same too. His hair mold on this one is actually different, because it's a hair hat mold, which is excellent if you ask me. You can see the detail on the hair once you take it off on the back, which has some little ridges right there. So it's like we've gotten to this point where they now have hair on hat molds in LEGO, and I think that's just really cool for detail alone. And now in real life, there's a certain charm with this little construction hat right here, because it's really kind of shiny. I like how that looks, because it looks a lot like a toy, but in a really fun way. So that really adds to the minifigure. Now with all that being said, and as I said, there's not really like any exclusive torso or leg printing. There is exclusive facial printing, which you can see is very, very happy right there, which is just really fun. And on the back, this is a slightly different version than, I guess you could say, is Cloud Cuckoo, which looks similar, where he kind of has his mouth open, but he's still smiling. So Emmet is just a great minifigure. I love this version probably the most. Maybe tied with Cloud Cuckoo. I know I keep on saying like either one is the best. And his accessory is actually this little instruction booklet that says like how to live life or whatever. It doesn't say on the printing, but this was in the trailer, I believe, where it basically shows how to be cool or stuff like that. Not too much of a spoiler, I hope. And so that's really cool. Very nice little printed piece. So yeah, Hard Hat Emmet, definitely one of my favorites of this series. Okay, so here is Wild West Wild Style, and this is actually a pretty interesting minifigure. Nah, I don't like it as much as other people do, because I know a lot of other people love this minifigure. But personally, I don't have like a Wild West setup or anything like that, so I don't think she's that great for my setup or whatever. And overall, I think she's a little bit disappointing in general. I mean, she doesn't have like a new mold or anything. She just uses this little fan mold, which is an old mold, in black, granted. And she has this little printing on her little sloped dress piece, which we see a lot of that lately. But it's an old piece. They've been using that for years. And you can see the torso right there and the back. So yeah, what do I think of this minifigure overall? Well, I don't know. They should have maybe put a little bit more variation, maybe a new accessory or something like that, because it is a lot like the ones you get in the set. which I guess isn't bad if you're not planning on getting a Wild Style set and you want to get Wild Style cheap. Then again, she comes in the melting room for only $13 in the US. Her facial printing looks a lot alike, don't get me wrong. It looks like the same exact thing. But if you look very closely, this one has kind of more wider eyebrows, and this one, the eyebrows are more close to the eyes, but this one, they're kind of separate. So I guess you could say her face is a little bit wider on this one, and her freckles are kind of more darker and stuff like that. So it is slightly different. And I say I prefer this version much better. And her printing on her torso, you can see there's a little skull necklace. So I guess if you're making like a gothic western scene, which believe me, I've seen a lot of that, which isn't a bad thing, this is kind of usable. Oddly enough, she doesn't have any double-sided face like Emmet, which would have been a nice touch to get more variation. But her hairpiece is the same one from the sets and stuff like that. So yeah, kind of disappointed with this minifigure. Next up is Abe Lincoln, and Abe Lincoln is actually a pretty cool minifigure. His whole hat and hair mold is one thing. It's all made out of rubber, and it is a very cool mold, but I can't really see much use for it because it's so specific to Abe Lincoln. So maybe it would have been nice to just get a tall top hat and maybe a different beard piece, but even then it would be very costly for LEGO to make that overall. So I guess this will do, but you can see it is very detailed, like I said, kind of a rubberish piece, which you could squeeze like that. And his facial printing is kind of cool. You could use it for some old people and stuff like that. Not too bad. No back torso printing, nice front torso printing, and his little thing right here says 407 years ago. So there you go. A little printed piece, which is very nice. So he is a really cool minifigure because he does look a lot like Abe Lincoln, and I don't think you'll ever see an Abe Lincoln minifigure anywhere else. That would be really cool to get like a historical minifigure series. But there you go, that's Abe Lincoln. And here's Miss Scratch and Post. May I say, this is probably my least favorite minifigure in like a while. I guess you could say since the Series 10 tattoo artist mechanic guy. But yeah, this does not impress me at all. Her cat, I'm not really a cat person, but I guess her cat's a little bit more detailed than the grandma's cat from Series 11. But even that cat I liked a lot more because it just looked a little bit, I guess less detail on cats is better. But this minifigure, her hairpiece is a different color for this kind of, I guess you could say, silky hairpiece that we've seen a lot like on mermaids and stuff like that. And it's not necessarily a bad piece at all. I actually kind of like it, but it doesn't work with this gray color at all. I can't really find much of a use for this. Not a lot of old ladies kind of have the hair in this style, and a lot of old ladies wear hair in gray. And I know a lot of young people who wear hair in gray, which isn't bad. But you can see on her face right there, it's very specific where she kind of just looks worried. There's no double-sided face to make her happy. And I mean, it's a lot different from the grandma from Series 11, so you can't really use it as an alternate face. Her torso and her legs are very detailed, don't get me wrong, with those little, I guess you could say, cat fur all over it. But the cat fur kind of limits the use too. It would have been nice to just get without any cat fur with the fanny pack and stuff like that, and maybe cat fur on the legs. But we don't, which kind of sucks because that would be a very nice thing to, like, that would be a really cool torso to use because I know a lot of people who love cats and have a fanny pack and stuff like that. And there's not much torsos with fanny packs. So overall, Miss Scratch and Post is kind of a bummer. No new molds or anything, just kind of different printed pieces. And even the new recolors of the hair, it just doesn't really impress. Okay, so here is Scribbly Face Bad Cop, a really kind of freaky minifigure. He is a lot like the one that you see in the sets, but his torso is slightly different and even worse. I mean, I like the torso of the one in sets, don't get me wrong. But I'm saying that the printing on here is a little bit lower quality and it's like a little bit stretched out, which makes me wonder maybe they had this minifigure series in production before the sets. And that kind of explains why Wild Style's face is a little bit different too. It looks a little bit stretched out. But I mean, the torso from the front isn't bad at all. But when you get to the back, you see, okay, there's no back printing. So doesn't that mean the one in the sets doesn't have back printing? Nope, because the one in the sets does have back printing. So that's disappointing that you don't get back printing in this one. So I'm just really kind of underwhelmed by that. He does have a very nice foam printed piece, which you can see right here. It looks a lot like an iPhone, so it's going to be really usable in the future. There you go, I had it upside down. But you can see the little logos on it. There's an Octin logo and there's just kind of some random other logos like some male question mark and a little star. So it is a very, very cool printed piece, and it's very usable, don't get me wrong. So you could just kind of put that right there. And his facial printing is definitely the big difference of this whole minifigure. You can see this one right here is actually really kind of creepy, but really cool, where it looks a little scribbly, and I know why that is. Haha, because I read the spoilers. And if you look at the back, if you take off his helmet, which is a very nice helmet piece, but the same from the set, you can see right there, his facial printing is actually different from the one in the sets. Because this one, he's just kind of like that, and then in this one, he has his whole teeth out. So, yeah, it's kind of interesting to see this variation of Bad Cop. Very disappointing to see that he doesn't have any back torso printing, but still, he still is a pretty nice minifigure because I do love his helmet, and the only way to get Bad Cop besides this is in a $30 set, which is a very strong $30 set, don't get me wrong, but this is the cheapest way to get him, and it's a good price. So here is Shakespeare, and Shakespeare looks a lot like the Series 8 actor, which I don't think I have, but you can see his torso printing is very detailed and nice, and his leg printing is too. Now the reason he looks a lot like the Series 8 actor is, well, because that actor was a Shakespearean actor, so it does make a lot of sense, and that's not a flaw at all. His leg printing is very detailed, where he has some leg printing on the sides of his legs, so this is going to be definitely a popular minifigure for, I guess you could say, historical people and stuff like that, and he does have that little ruffian, I believe it's called. I forgot what this is called right here. I want to say ruffian, but that's not even what it's called. Right there. And that looks very, very nice. And you can see his facial printing is really cool too, where he's just kind of grinning like that. No back facial printing. His accessory is this little piece right here, which is usually used for plumes and stuff like that. And then he has this little printed scripture right here, which says to build or not to build. So that makes sense. You can see his printer right there. And the coolest part is that he has this new hair mold right here, which is a hair and a head mold, which is a lot like the grandpa from Series 10. And you can see it's just very, very detailed right there. If I had to complain about it, I would say that the coloring of the hair kind of drips onto the head. It makes kind of this little, I guess you could say, blurred color or whatever. But that's not really much of a flaw because these are really kind of produced for a low price, so they could get these at a low price. So I don't really mind it too much, and it's not noticeable at all from afar or anything like that. So overall, very nice minifigure. Next up is Gayle the construction worker. This is actually a surprisingly really cool minifigure. At first I was against the fact that we're getting 2 construction workers in this series, but while it is kind of a little bit of a disappointment that the first time we're getting a female construction minifigure is in a minifigures line, not like the city line, she is a very, very detailed minifigure, and I do really like her. You can see her torso printing right there. She has a little bit of her breast right there peeking out, but it's kind of just this little jacket right here, which you see for construction workers. Very nice little jacket, and her little legs right there have some very nice printing right there, and she does have a nice belt right there. And you can see there's lots of details with some little tools, it seems like. Her back, she has some very nice back torso printing. And a pretty cool facial printing where she's kind of, I guess you could say, a dirty version of any female minifigure printing. So that's really nice. And then her accessory is this little jackhammer right here, which isn't a new piece at all. And that's a little bit disappointing that she didn't get like a new accessory. But her hair mold is just fantastic. It's like an updated version of, or not really an updated version, but a companion to Emmet's hair mold. Maybe like a female Emmet hair mold. Because you can see it has that little braid on the back, and it does have that very kind of shiny appeal that Emmet's hair hat mold has in the series. And inside, you can see mine may be misprinted, because the paint goes all the way to the inside, but that's not a flaw at all, and it's actually pretty cool. Oh, my glasses just fell. And you can see you can kind of put it on her like that, and it fits perfectly. So it is overall an excellent minifigure, and I really do love this minifigure. Here is Larry the Barista, and wow, another really amazing minifigure. This minifigure is just awesome. Love the little torso printing right there. Only downside with that is that it says Larry on there, which you guys know I don't really like it when they have name tags on torsos, but as a lot of you guys pointed out, yeah, it's not very noticeable at all, and I guess it adds more to the character or whatever, but still, it just kind of limits the use just a little bit. But I guess you could call this Larry's coffee shop, so I don't mind it too much. And the back right there, you see no back printing or anything like that, so that's a little bit disappointing. His legs have that really kind of nice apron printing, which we've been getting a lot. I mean, like the Flanders minifigure that we just got, or I just received, and a few of the actual Avatar like minifigures from 2006 had this. So I do like that little apron print. It is very nice. And he gets 2 new molds. Like, a lot of these minifigures just get 1 new mold. But this guy has a new coffee cup mold exclusive to him, which is just fantastic. And you can see the printing right there. Shows a little, I guess you could say, a minifigure face coffee cup on the back. And it's not like too overly printed, which is good. And you can see right there, it has that really nice kind of, I guess you could say, mold on there to make it look like a coffee cup. So that's awesome. And then the actual hair mold is fantastic too. If I had to say a complaint about it, it looks a little bit weird. The plastic looks a little bit weird on the minifigure. But still, it's just fine because you can see all the detail on there. So I guess it looks like that because it was very detailed and cheap to make. So yeah, it's just a very, very detailed hairpiece. And to top it all off, he has an excellent facial printing where he's just kind of worried like that, or I guess you could say kind of monotone or mundane. That's a good word for it because he's not really fazed by it, but he's just, he's not really putting all his effort to it. So overall, very nice minifigure and definitely one of my favorites of this series. Next is Velma Staplebot, and this minifigure I don't really like because I don't like her beehive hair. Well, that's not like the worst part. I know a lot of people are going to be like, okay, well, you like the beehive hair, right? Because it's really cool. Well, like I said, I don't really like the beehive hair, at least for me. I mean, yeah, it's very detailed, don't get me wrong. I give them props because a lot of these hair pieces are very detailed. Like you just saw Larry's hair piece is very detailed. But I don't know, I just can't find a use for it. I usually just use my minifigure, if any, to make like city minifigures. But even then, I know I always say that, but like I don't even have a city, like my city in display is all taken apart. So I gotta put it all together. But I digress. Anyways, back to this minifigure. You can see she does have this very nice little clipboard which says Taco Tuesday. It says super secret plan, Taco Tuesday, yeah. And you can see the little coffee printing right there to make it like coffee stains. So that's really nice. But the rest of her is just kind of, I don't know. I mean, I'm a little bit disappointed by her legs because her legs have, even though they're that nice salmon color, they have these little robot pads on it which limit the use to a robot. And they're kind of, I guess you could say, a skirt or something like that. And then she has a very nice torso, but I wish it was in yellow instead of this Wolverine orange, which we've been getting a lot of minifigures with that color. And then for her face, she has some makeup on her face, which just kind of makes it look a little bit weird. Again, I don't like robots with makeup or blush or whatever, and you guys know that. And her facial printing, you can see right there. I mean, it can't really be used with a robot. I guess you could say the makeup is blood, but I don't know, it just doesn't look right. And so yeah, that's really it for the minifigure. No back facial printing or torso printing. Very detailed hair piece, but I don't know. I don't find a use for it personally. Is it a well-made minifigure? Well, yeah, because the hair piece is very well made. And I do like the Taco Tuesday clipboard, but for me personally, not one of my favorites and probably really far from it. Here's a Taco Tuesday guy. Now I know a lot of people are going to say, oh, this is a lot like the one from Series 2, and it is, and I agree. Now, is it mediocre for me? Personally, no, because I never got the Series 2 Mariachi. But this basically is a carbon copy palette swap of it. Sans this little plate right here. Now, it is a very detailed minifigure. He does have this nice poncho on both sides, which is the same one from the Series 2 Mariachi guy. And the same hat, but like I said, they're different printing on both of them and different coloring. So it is a little bit different, like a palette swap. And I actually prefer this one just a little bit better. You can see his face is a lot like the Series 2 Mariachi, but this one's winking. And if you take off his head, you can see that his torso printing has no printing or anything like that. Now, I guess that was acceptable with Series 2, but this one has no printing and you have to pay $3. And Series 2, all you had to pay was $2. So, yeah, very disappointed about that. His legs do have some very nice torso printing, even though it's kind of minimalistic, but it does go to this little, I guess you could say, belt part right here. So that's okay. But yeah, not really feeling this minifigure. I guess it's a good substitute for me who did get Series 2. But my favorite part about this minifigure is his plate. I know it sounds odd, but this is essentially just a plate piece, but with different printing, which I haven't seen in a while. Now, the deal with this, though, is that you could use this at, like, Mexican restaurants and stuff like that as plates, because a lot of Mexican plates, not being stereotypical or anything like that, have kind of this printing on there. So that's cool. I always wanted to make a Mexican restaurant. So I guess it's not all a bad minifigure, and I do like how detailed this little plate is. So I'll just probably buy a couple of these once I see her on clearance, and just for this little plate right here, because I don't think this is going to be one of the more popular minifigures. And for his little tacos, it's kind of weird because these might be salsa chips, but he's called the Taco Tuesday guy. I mean, I'm guessing if these are tacos, these are kind of lame taco pieces because they're just really 1x1 tiles in that yellow color. Maybe it would have been cool to get a new taco mold because, like I said, there's no new molds on this minifigure. Next up is the Where's My Pants guy, and while this is kind of a funny concept, this is just kind of poorly executed. Now, his sleeve printing would have been so cool if he actually had half the sleeve printing, like the Homer Simpson minifigure, which I happen to have right here. You can see the sleeve printing right there. It's half of it is yellow, and then the other half is kind of this white right here. So that makes it look like it's a short sleeve shirt, which makes sense because most little Hawaiian shirts are short sleeve. But nope, they just kind of went long sleeve, so that's... But I really love the printing on his little torso right there on his shirt. It's excellent. There's no back printing on it, which is even more disappointing. Top it off with his hair mold not being a new hair mold. Yeah, I'm just really kind of disappointed with this guy. Would have been really cool to just get a Hawaiian shirt guy with some short sleeves, maybe a different colored hairpiece, but nope. And you can see his pants right there, no printing on there or anything special. And his facial printing is pretty cool though, I'll give him that. Where it's just kind of a really kind of smiley face. I like generic printing like this on the faces, but like with different, I guess you could say colored eyebrows and stuff like that because it adds to it, or a really kind of smiley face in this case. So yeah, that's it for this minifigure. So here is a Wily Fusebot, and wow, this guy is kind of more detailed than I thought he would be. I mean, when I first saw him, I wasn't really kind of looking too hard at him because I kind of dismissed the drones as a whole. But this guy has 2 new molds, which is kind of nice. He has this, I guess you could say, beard mold right there, which is kind of a neck beard, but it looks really kind of fake because he has it like that, which the robots are supposed to look like that, where they have kind of fake attachments and stuff like that. But he does have this very nice coonskin hat mold, which is, both of these are kind of rubbery molds, if you're curious about that. And this is very detailed. I like the molding on the top, you can see right there, and the coloring on the back little tail right there. So it is kind of a cool mold. I can't really find much of a use for it because not a lot of people in modern days use coonskin little hats and stuff like that. But still, I do give like a props to including 2 new molds for one minifigure. You can see his legs right there, kind of have that detail like that. And he even has belt detail where he, you can see it right there. Just let me move up the stuff. You can see right there his little belt detail, which looks a little robotic bolts or stuff like that. Also, he does have this little dynamite piece, which is nothing new, and this little gun piece, which is nothing new. A little bit disappointing with that. Maybe it would have been cool to include the Lone Ranger gun right there, because that's kind of hard to find at a cheap price, or not really a cheap price, but in a cheap set. And his facial printing right there, if you take everything off, you can see very specific to a robot. Can't really find much of a use for it besides a robot. I know a lot of people are saying, oh, use it with zombies, but it looks a lot like a robot. I mean, I don't know how you could pass that as a zombie, but who knows? I'm yet to see mocks with these as zombies. So that's it for the Wily Fusebot. Next up is the Panda Suit guy, and this guy doesn't have any new molds besides his little mask mold, and I have to say his mask mold is really cool. You can see it right there. He has little eye sockets to see his eyes, and it does have some nice printing on his little, I guess you could say, his nose and his mouth and the back. So it is a very nice mold. He has little ears coming out of the side, and it does look a lot like a panda. Once you go inside, you can see his face. He's kind of sticking out his tongue, and he has sweat all over. So that is a very cool mold, and I have to say this is an excellent minifigure. Probably my second favorite of the people in suits, or maybe my third because I did like the rabbit. My first favorite is the lizard suit guy from Series 5. And you can see the printing on his little bear right there, which is a little bit weird because it doesn't look a lot like a panda bear because of the proportions on like the arms and stuff like that. But it still could pass off as one because they just used a teddy bear mold, which is okay because I understand they didn't want to make a new mold just for this. So it is very printed, so it is really cool. And you can see this zipper suit on the back, which is a very nice detail like that. So overall, an excellent minifigure. Last up is Marsha, the Queen of Mermaids. I don't really like this minifigure. No new molds or anything on her. Her little tail mold actually looks a little bit weird because there's a little bit of skin right there, which is odd if you ask me. But you can see there's some scales like that, which I guess is okay. But in this purple color, it looks a little bit odd. Of course, that's the Little Mermaid tail that's been used since Pirates of the Caribbean in 2011. But you can see she has this little gem right here, which is a pink gem, and this little clamshell as an accessory, which is not a new piece, but a little bit of an uncommon piece. That's nice to get it in a $3 minifigure blind bag. And let me see, you could just kind of open it like that. So you can see you could fit a little gem or whatever you want in there. Always like these little clam pieces, but I never really owned one as a child. And you can see her facial mold is actually kind of detailed too. She has some bluish lipstick right there, and she has a very detailed little hair coloring right there. The hair mold is the same as the one that's been used since the camper in 2009, but it's colored in this blue, and she has this little seaweeded starfish printing on the top right there. I can't really find much of a use for this besides someone told me Lego Nicki Minaj. So that's going to be interesting. I want to see somebody do that. But for now, yeah, I don't really like this minifigure because we just got a mermaid in Series 9, and I think that one's far more superior. Sure, this one's a little bit more detailed, but this one is a little bit more crazier, and dare I say unrealistic. I know it sounds odd, but obviously mermaids aren't real, but when you get something like this, it kind of doesn't really fit the mood of a mermaid scene or stuff like that that you could add with the pirates. Like, I don't think this would fit in a pirate scene where a lot of mermaids are found. So yeah, I'm a little bit disappointed with this one. And plus she has no back printing or anything like that. So that's it for this minifigure. Overall, what do I think of this series? Well, compared to other series, I think it stands just in the middle. Maybe a little bit worse than that, but it's not one of my favorites, it's not one of my least favorites. Actually, originally, I really did not like this theme at all. I actually thought it was probably the worst theme, or, okay, sorry, not worst theme series out of all the LEGO Minifigures series. But with this series out, when I finally got a hold of the minifigures, when I finally saw White Fang's review, which is fantastic, by the way, it really convinced me that a lot of these figures are actually really good. And for those that are just amazing, I have to say Hard Hat Emmet and Larry the Barista. Those two are my favorites out of the whole series, and I think they're just fantastic. There's a few that are actually really good, like the Panda Suit guy, Gayle the Construction Worker, Shakespeare, and Abe Lincoln. I like them. They're really cool. And then there's a few that are kind of mediocre disappointments, like Where's My Pants Guy? I mean, Where's My Pants Guy? I was really kind of disappointed that he didn't get short sleeve, and there's not really much other variation about him. Sure, he has a little underwear, but it would have been funny if his pants had maybe a little bit of printing, or his hair was a different color, because we already got this hair piece in the same exact color. And a few that were kind of really disappointing are like, I guess, Miss Scratch and Post for sure. Miss Scratch and Post is definitely one of my least favorite minifigures in a while. Marsha, the Queen of Mermaids is just kind of a minifigure, because I think that the Series 9 mermaid was really good, but it was good as just, you know, you get one mermaid, that's all we need. But now we got this one right here, and it just does not mend well with me, because I think the printing on the little tail is a little bit weird. The purple color, while I do like purple, doesn't really match, and then her blue hair is just kind of odd, and it doesn't look right for me. The robots aren't as bad as when I first thought they would be. Like the Calamity drone, they all have interesting pieces. Like the Wily Fusebot, he actually has a pretty interesting little hat, and I guess you could say it's kind of like a ruffle or a beard or something like that. I'm not even sure. But those are interesting pieces, but personally for me, I can't find a use for them, so I'm not really fond of them. Same goes for the secretary one, which I always forget the name, or it's Velma Staplebot, that's it. Her hairpiece is really interesting, but I can't really find a use for it because I guess it's too classical, and I really wish her torso was kind of a yellowish color more than the Wolverine orange. Still, I do like her pants because it's kind of that salmon color, but then the robot piece, or the robot printing on them, kind of ruin it. And the Calamity drone has a really, really nice hairpiece. I do like the hairpiece, but the rest of her is just kind of bland for me. That's kind of how I feel about this series. It's interesting to see a series where we get like minifigures that are in other like sets and stuff like that, but these are variations on them, like President Business, Bad Cop, Emmet, and Wild Sal. So yeah, it's an interesting series. I'm not going to rate it compared to others because these are so hard to rate as a series as a whole. But like I said, it's not my least favorite 3, which I can name those off the top of my head. Series 3, Series 5, and Series 10. But it's not anywhere near one of my favorites. And if you're a minifigure collector, I would say complete this series. I know a lot of people are saying, oh, I'm not going to complete this series because I'm not into the LEGO Movie. This isn't a true minifigure series, but it is a minifigure series. It even says it right there, minifigures. So I don't know how you would consider this not one. And I mean, it's not much off of what you would see in the LEGO minifigure series. It's just we're getting a lot of them that are kind of redundant, that we got repeats, I guess you could say, because we've already gotten a mariachi type person. We already got a mermaid. We already got a cat lady. See what I'm saying? So yeah, that's just how I feel about it as a whole. There's still, like I said, there's just still a handful of good ones, but there's a lot of them are really kind of mediocre or bad. So that's it for this review, and I will see you guys later. Bye.